Hey guys, good morning. So Will and I were just discussing what we're going to do with the wild, wayward high tunnel. This has not been used this season. A lot of volunteer stuff grew in here and we harvested out of it, but we have not intentionally sown anything in here. So what we're going to be doing is tearing everything out, pulling all the grass out of where the beds were, because this soil has been so worked on, and this grass is just encroached. And what Will was saying was he's never weed eated this. Oh, there's ants right there. But because this soil is so loose and has such good structure, as you can see, this grass just pulls out super easily. So we want to clear out where the beds were, and essentially the plan is to build like a one board high, very low, essentially a raised bed that we can then fill the rest of the way with some more soil. And then we'll probably, I think, put some sort of barrier down over the walkways. Not 100% sure on that yet. We may leave them natural grass and just weed eat them. So but right now we're just resetting this. We've got boards here that this is what we're going to use for the low raised beds. So they'll be like 6 inches tall. We're not building them very tall. Just something kind of to create a barrier. It makes it easier to weed, to hold the soil in, keep anything from eroding. My hope here is by getting this reset, now we can replant this. Some of it will be with things that will be flowers that will be coming to, like, starting to bloom in the spring, things that need to go over the winter, things like sweet pea flowers. I may get some ranunculus bulbs. I'm not 100% sure if those will even work here in this area. I love ranunculus. They're one of my most favorite flowers, but they don't really like it hot. So I'm gonna have to do a little more research on that. But we're resetting it now because we'll be able to grow a lot of food in here over the winter with like brassicas and whatnot. And then in the spring, this will be ready to just simply amend. And then I'm going to do cut flowers in this tunnel next spring. I plan on doing it this year, and just, it didn't get high enough on the priority list to get done. All right, well, we're gonna get to it. You ready for the satisfying transformation, Will?
Give me a good one.
Oh, look.
Are you ready?
Yeah, let's see.
For the world record? That doesn't seem like it's real.
That's crazy. Is that the Navone yellow rutabaga?
Yeah.
It's got to be the yellow one. Good night.
These were so good.
Yeah, no, the yellow ones are my favorite. They're so good.
It's got to be like...
We were really hoping that this massive rutabaga would go to seed, but I think the shade cloth is just hindering it. Oh my gosh.
Is that like 10 pounds? 8 pounds?
Yeah, I would guess it's probably 10. It may be like 11 or 12.
That's heavy.
It's very heavy.
Wish it was
What are you going to do with it?
The wormies might like it.
Yeah?
If I have to cook it though.
Yeah, because it's...
That'd be a good thing. I'll probably cook it and...
Feed it
I
to
don't
the...
know what I'll do with it.
Yeah. It smells nice. It smells spicy like a rutabaga. Look at this volunteer pepper plant. Alright, I gotta quit my gawking and get to work. For 2 people in what, 2 hours? Is that how long we've been out here?
Yeah. Well.
Pretty good. Alright guys, I'm going to stand up and chat for a second because my knees are in utmost protest. Going through here and weeding out these beds, Will and I have been chatting the whole time. I think we could solve all the world's issues if we could apply all the things we talk about while we weed the garden. I'm just going through here and I've pulled out no less than like 20 small nasturtium plants. These little guys here, fully edible, great trap crop. Obviously very much will reseed because I didn't plant any of these in here this year. I was just noticing it's just the random stuff that's growing throughout here. Here's a little carrot. See that sticking in there. Over here, where we had radishes and some of them went to seed. You can see here, this is where the radishes went to seed, and this is kind of what happens to it after the plant has fully like gone to seed and dried up. Like this was a radish. You can see it's like all dried up and brittle and hollow. So cool. But all through here you can kind of see some of the green because I just pulled them up and left them. These were radishes that had reseeded, and there were tons of them growing right here. Of course there's holy basil everywhere. Over here these were volunteer cucumbers, all volunteer zinnias. Every sunflower that's been growing in here was a volunteer. I mean everything. We didn't plant anything in here this year. It was just the remnants, like the radishes were left from when we planted them and they reseeded. There's volunteer peppers growing all the back. There's volunteer ground cherries. I remember the first couple of years I gardened, I wanted to grow nasturtiums. Oh, there's a buggy on here. I wanted to grow nasturtiums really bad. I'd read about them and I'd read that they were really great companion plants, and I remember very specifically like hunting down seeds because I hadn't ordered any seeds, and this is a lot of years ago. It was before our standards as a society changed on shipping, where you could actually expect like free shipping or fast shipping, and you couldn't just like buy a seed package and have it at your house and anytime within a few weeks, you know, and you'd have to pay a lot for shipping. So I was looking locally, and I remember going to probably like 6 stores, and I remember finding at a local nursery they had a seed display and they had some nasturtium seeds. I was so excited to find them. I took them home and I planted them, and they didn't grow. So the next year I soaked them and I scarified them and, you know, scratched up this outside, and then I planted them and they didn't grow. And I'd read in a book somewhere that nasturtium didn't like to be started, that it really needed to be direct sown, and I remember being so discouraged. So the third year that I wanted to grow nasturtiums, I had ordered some seeds that time with my seed order, and maybe it was the seeds I got the first time, I don't know, or maybe they just, I have no clue why they didn't grow, but they didn't. And I remember the third year I was just like, I'm just going to direct sow them. And so I did. I didn't soak them, I didn't scratch them, I put them in the soil, and for whatever reason that year they grew. And since then I've always direct sown nasturtiums. I've had them in the garden. We started them too, but it's funny to me now, like all these years later, I'm in here and I'm weeding this wild overgrown high tunnel and just pulling out nasturtium plant after nasturtium plant after nasturtium plant. And it is so representative to me of the abundance of the garden. And even when you struggle with something, if you just stick with it in the garden, eventually you will find yourself in abundance. And though there are years that things don't go as you plan and there may be disappointment, just being in this space and having, here's some more, having like these plants everywhere. This is food. I mean, all throughout here, even though we're weeding this stuff out, it gets crazy to me to be pulling out fully grown, healthy pepper plants. Which, I mean, this would bear fruit if I left it. I didn't need to leave it because I need to reset the space. And I've got, obviously, no shortage of peppers over here that I'm not even fully harvesting them. So it's fine to pull it out. But what abundance to be able to pull out something like that without worrying about it. To be able to pull out these things and know it's fine, like there will be more. I'm not approaching this with the mindset that like, oh God, I have to keep every single thing. There's a little pepper plant. They're all over. I've probably pulled out about 15 little pepper plants that have popped up. Quick pause from weeding. Wes just came down here and I want to show you guys this, talk to you about it a little bit. We had bought some horse feed and it was out in the barn, and I'm not sure if there was like a leak or something. It got wet, something happened and it started to mold, and of course you can't feed horses moldy feed. Will's grandfather apparently thumbs up like this, and so now we all do that. Unfortunately, this was quite a bit of grain that spoiled, and we had to get it out of the barn because when something begins to compost in a building, it's a fire hazard. Like, if you have feed, especially, you know, bulk, and that was a whole scoop of the skid steer, and it's starting to mildew and break down, it can combust and it can burn the barn down. So we came and we threw it on the compost pile, and Will was just saying, like, in a little bit they'll mix this in, and the worms will love this. So this compost pile is just chock full of worms. When the kids come fishing, they come over here and dig out worms from the compost. And this is like bedding, this is spent garden stuff. This is technically a static pile, meaning that it'll sit here and we'll stir it for probably 9 months to even a year before it's really broke down enough to go on the garden. So this is unfortunate. However, we call it, whenever we take this, which was waste, which, you know, obviously, like, we wouldn't have chose to spend that much money on horse feed to feed the worms in the compost. But on a farm, if you have the mindset of closing loops, there never really has to be waste. There can be loss where it's like, well, you know, like we lost some money here. We want to figure out why this happened, keep it from happening again. But by putting it here, it's not waste. There's a difference between loss and waste. And for instance, like, we have tons of peppers in the high tunnel, and we're using a lot of them. A lot of people are using a lot of them. We're sharing. Will's been taking some of them to the farmer's market. But if there are excess and we pluck them and we don't, you know, we're not going to do anything with them, and we throw them in with the turkeys, which we're growing out for holiday meals and for meat, there may be some loss in value in that turkey feed is cheaper than what peppers sell for at a farmer's market, or turkey feed is cheaper than what peppers sell for at a grocery store. So there's like a little bit of loss there in value, but there's not any waste. And ultimately it comes down to your hope. So like, a lot of times people will get chickens and they'll be like, well, I'm gonna sell extra eggs. Well, if you have chickens, you can actually, you know, some people are grossed out by this, but like, you can actually cook those eggs if you have extra and feed them back to the chickens. So maybe you sell the extra eggs, or if you have extra eggs, maybe you use them in your garden for, you know, feeding the soil, or maybe you cook them and feed them back to the chickens. Maybe you cook them and feed them to the pigs. There are all these different things that you can choose to apply the resources you have on a farm. Just a thought. I don't know, Wes was going out there with that, and my first thought is, oh man, I feel bad that that got wasted. But then Will just said, oh, the worms are gonna love that. That's gonna give, you know, that's gonna really give that compost pile a boost. And it is. It's gonna give it some heat. It's gonna keep the worms happy, help them multiply. So is it wasted? No, it's not wasted. It's okay. When it's not the goal, but it's okay. All right, I've got a meeting down at the roastery. I'm about to have to dip out and go down there and film. But Will's gonna. Are you gonna work on this? Or do you have something else you're gonna work on?
I'm gonna finish this.
You are? Okay.
And then we'll figure out something to do.
All right. Got some progress. It looks good.
Yeah. I'll give you a good after.
So satisfying.
So satisfying.
Peace out, homie.
Bye-bye.
I was talking about our Roots Refuge thumbs up. Also, Cousin Amy's son, Ryan, when he was really little. Actually, I'm going to text her and get the clip and show it to you guys. It is the cutest thing ever. And you'll know why we say, so satisfying.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying.
It's what?
It's satisfying.
It's satisfying
Yeah.
to watch the rain on the windshield?
See?
Uh-huh.
It's so satisfying on the windshield with the rain.
I agree.
See?
Yeah.
Look at the rain on it.
Yep. Totally satisfying.
Hey guys, it's evening now. I'm actually simultaneously shooting 2 videos today, so sometimes I do that whenever I've got a lot of things going on and they're kind of not related, so I'll just separate them. But I wanted to finish up and follow up, give you the so satisfying view of the cleaned out high tunnel. Will worked on it more after I left. He messaged me and said, leave the sunflowers alone, they have wasps on them. I said, were you assaulted? He said, yes, I was. He said he would deal with it today. He's like, just a fair warning. So we're gonna give the sunflowers some birth. But look at this high tunnel. It looks really, really good. So one thing that we had talked about doing, and some things we pulled up, a lot of the bigger things like the big sunflowers and stuff that had root systems in the ground that were substantial, instead of pulling those up and displacing a whole bunch of soil, we just cut those off. He used his machete and cut them, because anytime you leave a root system in the soil, it's just going to break down. Sometimes you have to pull them out on certain things, like kale, for instance. I always end up just pulling the root systems of kale out, because if you leave any, even like the tiniest little stump of a kale plant, a year later it will start growing. It's silly, like a whole season later. But for the most part, most plants you can cut off at the ground and leave the stumps as long as they're not in your way. These are mushroom inoculated logs. Benjamin and Will put those in here, and we're gonna leave them, and we'll just build the beds around them and maybe fill them up a little bit more, but those guys are gonna stay. But yeah, it looks really good in here. For the most part, it is cleaned out and ready to go, except for the wasp-infested sunflowers. Wasp stings, and really any stings, hurt my feelings. Anytime. They hurt physically, but I always end up crying because I'm like, why did you do that to me? So the next step is going to be we're going to take the trellis down, and then I need to make a decision on what I'm going to do on the walkways here, because I'm going back and forth between laying plastic down on them and just leaving them and weed eating. Today we were talking about potentially leaving them grass and then getting like a push mower, not a motorized one, just like a rotary push mower, and just keeping it out here to like mow the walkways. And jobs like that I really like, because my young children can help me with them, and I think that might be a really cool idea. We ended up putting plastic down in the other high tunnel, but because we leveled this and it was clay, that plastic, the water would pull up and it would get really squishy, and that's why I'm hesitant to do that over here, because I think it may end up doing the same thing it did over there. So we put gravel down over there, but I would much prefer to have the grass walkways to the gravel walkways. Grass walkways need more maintenance, but I find them more enjoyable than gravel. I know gravel is neat and tidy and looks cool, but I would prefer to be barefoot on grass any day other than gravel. So that's what I'm leaning towards. But now that this is reset, we will kind of come up with our game plan, finalize these decisions, and do these low raised beds. My goal is to have this done in really, I mean, we've got kind of a wide range here, maybe like the next month or so, ready to plant, so that we can get brassicas and stuff in here to plant for over winter, as well as the flowers that need to go over winter. And then, yeah, we're gonna get a lot of food out of this space. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. Isn't this so satisfying? I bless you. Until next time.